Episode 5, Keep It in the Family, Chapter 1, The King and Queen. Hi, and welcome to the 5th episode of Hellenic Helpers. Everyone wants to find their soulmate, but what do you do when your soulmate is your sibling? Well, you might not know for sure, but these two are definitely not soulmates. If you don't know yet, this episode's about Hera and Zeus. Let's get started. Zeus and Hera are the king and queen of Olympus. Zeus is the god of lightning and the sky, while Hera is the goddess of marriage and women. Together, they had a couple of children, and Zeus had a couple without Hera. Hera always stayed loyal to her husband because she was the goddess of marriage, so it was important for her to be a good wife for Zeus. Zeus didn't have the same idea, though. He went and had a bunch of affairs with goddesses and mortals. This resulted in a lot of minor gods and demigods, all descended from the king of Olympus himself. Hera didn't like this. She had stayed loyal to her husband just for him to cheat on her. Hera was very upset and wanted to prove a point to Zeus, so she willed herself to become pregnant. That child sometimes is considered a child of Zeus. Zeus and Hera had 2 children together. They had a son and daughter. Hebe, their daughter, is the goddess of youth and forgiveness. She was once the cupbearer on Olympus. Their son's name was Ares. Chapter 2, Ares. Ares is the god of war. Ares is often described as violent and impulsive. He enjoys the fighting and destruction of war. One time, 2 giants, Otis and Ephialtes, were storming up to Mount Olympus to kidnap Artemis and Hera. Otis was in love with Artemis, and Ephialtes was in love with Hera. Hera again is married to Zeus, and Artemis is a virgin goddess. Therefore, those relationships would never happen. To get to Mount Olympus, they stacked mountains on top of each other and climbed them. Eventually, the gods noticed this and sent Ares after them. The twins grabbed Ares and shoved him into a bronze jar. Then they left Olympus to go play with their new prisoner. Ares stayed trapped in that jar for 13 months. The giants were getting impatient, so they started planning to storm Olympus. Luckily for the gods, the giant's stepmother tells them that they have Ares in a cave. Artemis notices the giants approaching Olympus, and she transforms into a deer. She ran dodging attacks from both giants. Eventually, she jumped in between the pair, and they impaled each other with their spears. With the giants gone, Hermes set Ares free, and they all returned to Olympus. Ares later had an intimate relationship with Aphrodite. Aphrodite was married to Ares' brother, Hephaestus. Speaking of Hephaestus, he is next. Chapter 3, Hephaestus. Hephaestus is the god of fire and metalworking. His creation is interesting. Remember earlier when Hera willed herself to be pregnant? Well, Hephaestus is the result of that. The thing is, though, when Hephaestus was born, he was deformed. His head was misshapen, and his leg was crippled. Hera was so grossed out by this that she threw Hephaestus out the window. He fell off of Olympus, and that definitely didn't help to improve his looks. This became a very traumatic experience for Hephaestus. When the god grew up, he wanted revenge. Hephaestus made a golden throne that would bind the user to it. Hephaestus also made thrones for the other Olympians. Hephaestus went to Mount Olympus and presented the thrones to the gods. Hera sat down on hers and she was trapped. Zeus got mad and threw Hephaestus off Olympus. After being thrown off Olympus twice, Hephaestus wasn't in much of a hurry to get back up there. The gods eventually realized they couldn't get Hera out of the trap and sent Dionysus to Hephaestus to free Hera. Dionysus talked to Hephaestus, but instead of forcing him to release Hera, he talked to him like nothing was wrong. Dionysus didn't pressure Hephaestus to go back to Olympus, and Hephaestus really appreciated that. Eventually, Hephaestus and Dionysus got really drunk, and Hephaestus went back to Olympus to release Hera. Chapter 4, A Net of Lies. Aphrodite was married to Hephaestus. This is a very important thing to remember. Ares liked Aphrodite, and they started seeing each other. Eventually, Hephaestus found out and made a plan. Hephaestus made a net of gold and set a trap for Ares and Aphrodite. Later that day, when Aphrodite and Ares were hanging out in Aphrodite's bed, the trap activated. The golden net suspended Aphrodite and Ares in the air. Hephaestus invited the other Olympians to come and see the 2 embarrassed gods. All of the gods made fun of Aphrodite and Ares. Poseidon was the one god who felt any sympathy for the 2. He bribed Hephaestus to let them go, and Hephaestus released the 2 Olympians. Ares fled to Thrace, and Aphrodite fled to Cyprus. Hephaestus held a grudge against Ares and Aphrodite, which makes sense. Father like son, right? Ares and Zeus are clearly very good at keeping it in their pants. Anyways, I'm your host. This is Hellenic Helpers. See you next time.